how would you consider the Cape Cod waters right now? Would it be shark infested? Where are we at?
Well, there's no formal definition for shark infested. So I don't know. I mean, if there's sharks in an area, then I guess you could say there's shark infested. The role that Cape Cod plays right now is really just a big restaurant. The extent to which reproductive behavior may be going on, it's possible, but we haven't seen enough evidence to indicate that there's actual mating behavior, and we don't have strong evidence that females are giving birth to their young here. But what we do see is seals, sharks very close to seals, sharks eating seals. And so that is, right now, Cape Cod, coastal Massachusetts, primarily Cape Cod, represents a very important foraging area for this species. Shark we've approached, we get an estimate of length, we get sex, we get information about that particular animal. Early in this work, we were seeing predominantly bigger white sharks. And let me just take a step back. When you look at traditional literature on when white sharks actually begin to target seals, it's generally thought of that they augment their diet with bigger prey when they get to be about 9 feet long. So we certainly expect to see animals from 9 feet up. And that was really what dominated our sample in 2013, 14, even 15. In recent years, we have been seeing more and more smaller sharks as well, as small as 6 feet. So the size range that we're actually seeing now is 6 feet up to 18 feet in length. And the extent to which these animals can approach shore is based on water depth. So water depth is a critical feature, and that we need to think about. We tend to think more about proximity to shore, but for all of us who spend time around Cape Cod, you can have very deep water very, very close to shore. So it's more about depth. Time of day, I don't feel that dawn and dusk play a major role here in Cape Cod. White sharks are highly visual feeders. Most of the incidents that we have seen occurred during the day. Not necessarily, traditionally scientists have said avoid periods of dawn and dusk because that's thought to be a major feeding area. Shark eyes in general are really well adapted to low light levels. I think in the case of white sharks, it's opportunistic. It's when they can get close to a prey that they will strike it. They have to see it, they have to find it, they have to grab it. The question I have is what are these smaller sharks doing? We actually have seen seal scratches on the faces of many of these sharks, including the smaller ones. So they're targeting smaller seals, probably the newborns from this past winter. So it's interesting how the size range has expanded. You should know that white sharks, based on some work we did a few years ago, will live in excess of 70 years. So they're very long-lived. They don't reproduce very quickly based on what we know in other parts of the world. But you can expect that if a shark has a feeding area, it will go to it for year after year after year after year. And that's why you see these increases in population size as animals recruit to an area each summer. I think the latest research on color vision is that sharks do not have color vision. I think Sean Collins' work's pointing to that more recently. But it's all about contrast. It's all about shades of black and white, and movement. The animals are reacting. We've all been out there. There are days where you can't see 2 feet. And visibility plays a major role. Sharks are making decisions very quickly based on movement, shade, changes in shade, and reflections. We all saw the image of the shark coming out of the water while I was up on the pulpit this past summer, seemingly to strike me. And that's the reaction of the shark to an image that it perceived at the water's surface. And it was a split-second decision that the animal made to strike, and that's what happens. They don't have and their vision's no better than ours in this turbid water. They don't have radar either, or sonar, or any of those features. They are reacting at a short distance based on silhouettes and reflections and movements. And so what triggers that, we don't know. But that's where the research, nobody knows. I mean, if we knew this, we'd solve the problem. But there are areas around the world that you all know have been dealing with this for decades. So we're all trying to find silver bullets. We're trying to find ways to protect ourselves.
What are the water temperatures ranges that these sharks are being attracted to, and in the same breath, what are their months of migration?
Yeah, you all saw the graphic I put up. You know, May is a slow month for the sharks. If they come in, it's very, very late in May. June is another slow month. We've never seen dramatic increases in June. July's the pivotal month. If it's a warm July, a warm spring, they will come in big numbers like they did this July. It ramped up very, very quickly. But August, September, October are the peak months, and then the dramatic declines that occur in November, generally during the first 2 weeks. And that's probably going to be the case this year, and we'll be able to look at that through the acoustic data. 50 degrees is a very good threshold. The bulk of, 97% of the time the sharks are in water between 53 and 67 degrees. They will venture into colder water, and they will venture into warmer water. And we did see sharks last week, and we were getting temperatures of 49, 50. So it's kind of a threshold. They'll start moving out as that water consistently becomes colder.
Can we control the seal population? Would that make us safer?
Well, all I can say with regard to studying the seals, it's something that I've been, obviously, we can study the predator all we want, but we really need to know what the prey is doing. We observe the seals when we're out there, but we're not doing any empirical data collection. The permitting that involved in that is onerous, to say the least. But we have been working with the Protected Species Division at the National Fisheries Service to coordinate getting tags out on seals. I think that's important. We've had a few hiccups with regard to permitting in recent months, but satellite tag technology is certainly something that we want to use more of. And I want to use acoustic tag technology. We actually have acoustic technology that allows tags to talk to each other. So if I've got 100 plus white sharks out there and we can get just as many seals tagged, it'd be very interesting to look at behavioral patterns and the overlap of these patterns between the predator and the prey. And I think also coming up with better estimates of regional abundance would be helpful, just like we're doing with the white sharks, to try to define the universe in which we're operating. I think that would be something that I know that the government, the National Fisheries Service, is interested in, and we hope they pursue that as well.
Like, what about, like you said, hunting on site and patterns of color and stuff like that? Do the white stripes on the bottom of your board do anything at all, or is it just like a total hoax? And do they also hunt on scent, i.e. can we pee in our wetsuits, and does it make a difference? Because it doesn't. And like, is it going to attract them? Is it going to deter them? Will it help them determine if I'm a seal or a human being or anything like that?
I don't think urinating in your wetsuit's a problem. I mean, I have to do it too. So.
He's still here.
Yeah, I'm still here, but you know, color patterns. There's a lot out there in terms of camouflage wetsuits and high contrast black-white stripes. There's not a lot of empirical data like we've seen with this technology to support that any of those work. I wish I had more, but there's not a lot to support that.
The buoy system is very, very appealing, and I think it's a realistic solution. Can you tell me how far off you guys are to coming up with something that would be a model that you could deploy? And does the environment of Cape Cod is that something that, with the wave action and everything else that goes on in the depth in our environment, is it different than Australia and some of the other areas, South Africa? And what would the cost be? I didn't realize that the size was so large of the field.
Yeah, it will. I mean, obviously it's still very early days. I mean, we're still in material selection. And a lot of it depends on funding, right? We're a tiny little company. So we're in the midst of raising capital right now, and that's our next big product development is that. So realistically, we're at least 18 months away from a product. And you know, cost-wise, I don't think we know yet. But in terms of the actual environment and putting it here, I don't see it as a problem because it's just a single mooring per device. And we've got some incredibly rough coastline in Western Australia, and that's what we're designing it for. So from the environmental perspective, I don't envision it being a problem.
What are the chances of using Cape Cod as a pilot program?
I don't think it would be an issue, but I can't commit to that right now either.
Thank you.
It'll be on the list, how about that?
Depth to be in like a probably low tide, like knee high, waist high, chest high.
Well, I think it's all about depth, you know, and then of course that's linked to the size of the shark in terms of the girth of the animal. But you know, when I talk to swimmers, I think waist deep is where I would want to be along the outer cape in certain areas.
All right, thank you.
We don't see very many big ones. As a matter of fact, our average size this year has been in the 9 to 11 foot range. And the really big ones, I don't think we've seen anything over 15 feet this year, and that's only been 1 or 2 individuals. No, I mean, the big ones come through. They're just not as many big ones.
Yeah. So you don't have a specific number like, yeah, we saw 6 like 20 footers this year.
No, I mean, we've seen nothing over 15 this year, and I'd say we maybe 1 15-footer, one, and then the rest were 12 feet and lower.
What caused the shark population to jump so high? Do we know, obviously, the seal population, but what made the seals come? You know, do we have an answer?
Well, I think that you got to look at, now I'm not a seal biologist, but I've been forced to look into the seals because and it's remarkable how little we actually know in terms of the biology, behavior, and abundance of seals over time. And so it's a bit of a challenge for all of us. But based on a thesis written by Stephanie Wood, who now works for the National Marine Fisheries Service, she did a nice job of looking at the history of the gray seal. And we're talking about the gray seal in particular here. And it turns out that we had driven the gray seal population to the brink of extinction through overharvest over the course of the last couple of 100 years. And so many of us don't remember them growing up. A lot of people don't remember ever seeing seals growing up because they were really driven so low. In 1972, we passed a very powerful Marine Mammal Protection Act, which afforded them the very highest levels of protection. And it's taken 46 years for the population to recolonize and repopulate the northeastern United States, including Cape Cod. And it's a slow, they're mammals, so they reproduce very slowly, but they live long. So, you know, the growth of the population is slow at first, but ramps up very quickly because of their long lives. So with the restoration of the seal population and numbers of seals, basically what we have going on with the white shark population is twofold. We're seeing a general increase in the population along the eastern seaboard of the United States. It's coupled with conservation that was put in place in late 1990s. And then we're also seeing a redistribution in response to this high abundance of seals, a high food resource. So we're seeing a shift in habitat use. So it's not per se an absolute increase in the number of white sharks as much as it's a shift to a specific location to feed.
Wondering if you had any instances where you found their great whites year-round, sticking around here, because it seems like their food source isn't really going anywhere, and most of us are year-round surfers. And
right. I think our latest detection in the season is has been December 12th. After that, no detections, and we have left receivers out year-round, and they've actually survived the elements, and we've had no detections. And yes, there are a lot, as a matter of fact, there's more seals around in the winter because the harbors move in as well. And so, yeah, you have plenty to eat, but water temperature plays a critical role in these animals, and although they can elevate their internal body temperature, they can't do it for prolonged periods of time, and therefore they actually have to move to warmer latitudes.